Hi everyone and welcome back. I want to present a question to you that was presented to me last spring as I was finishing up one of my master's classes. I was asked to write a paper answering the question, what is religion? What a daunting task. This question is so massive. Scholars, theologians, philosophers for hundreds and hundreds of years have been writing volumes and volumes and volumes trying to answer this very question, and then all of a sudden I was supposed to do some justice to it in some grad school paper. I was completely overwhelmed. And I thought to myself, well, what do I want to say really about religion? What do I want to say? Or rather, what do I not want to say? I know how religion has been spoken of, but how do I not want to speak of religion? I entitled my paper, Religion, Beyond the Tyranny of Wholeness. So many times within religion, and let's say Christianity, because that's what we're talking about here for all intents and purposes, right? Christianity promises us satisfaction, peace, fulfillment, completion, all of these things that we're seeking outside of ourselves, because as humans, we want some sense of meaning in our lives. And since the dawn of time, religion that has been constructed by culture has really been sort of the reaction to this need we feel as humans. But in terms of Christianity, do we get free from one thing to enslave ourselves to another? Is there something outside of us that completes us and makes us whole? You see, this question of religion and Christianity and the meaning of life, all of these things, it's not an uncomplicated one. And a lot of times when we start going deep into these questions, it can be really scary. Because we know deep down inside that once we eat the apple and we attain knowledge, we will be irrevocably locked out of the garden and our realities will be changed and transformed forever. And that can be a really scary thing. When you're forced to deal with realities, when you're forced to deal with questions and different ways of seeing the world that you're not quite ready for and that you didn't even know really existed. Our lives that we've based on this God who lives in our hearts, this divine caregiver that Christianity tells us will complete us and make us whole. Have we freed ourselves from one thing to enslave ourselves to another, to strive for this illusionary sense of peace that is found outside of ourselves? And maybe not even outside of ourselves, maybe found in whatever next life we're waiting for. I can't tell you how many times I've heard in Christian circles, we'll understand it all when we get to heaven, or we'll understand it all when we're sort of face to face with God and this and that. But what about this life here and now? What about what this life requires of us? What about justice, mercy, and love and community in this life right now? Without having to do it in the name of some God, but we do it in the name of who we are as humanity. There's a theologian, his name is Schubert Ogden, and he writes about this sort of question. And instead of using the word religion, he uses the word faith. And he says that ultimately, faith is the question, and the answer is that our lives are worth the living of it. And that's what having faith is. Having faith is that our lives actually do matter. Now, here, what we do, it actually really counts. So, I want to just send out a challenge today. Are you under the tyranny of wholeness? Are you under the false illusion and enslavement of peace and satisfaction and completion outside of yourself, outside of your community? Is it there to be found? Maybe, perhaps. But I just cannot tell you how many times I have been in religious and Christian communities who sit there and take it all in, who get fat with the manna of the gospel stories and teachings from the pulpit and their Bible studies and their prayer groups and their worship nights and whatever else you want to say. And they actually don't do anything outside of themselves because they're too busy trying to complete themselves and trying to make themselves whole. That doesn't sound like Christianity to me. That doesn't sound like what Jesus did to me. That doesn't sound what religion is supposed to be to me. And that certainly doesn't sound like Ogden's definition of having faith, that life is actually worth the living of it. Anyway, just some thoughts for this week. Take them for what they're worth, and we'll see you next time.